الراحمون يرحمهم الرحمن ارحموا من في الأرض يرحمكم من في السماء. This narration is reported from Abdurrahman ibn Bishr ibn al-Hakam, as Dr. Abu Zayd explained in detail, who narrated from Sufyan ibn Uyayna, who said, or who narrated from his teacher Amr ibn Dinar, from the most knowledgeable of the ulama of Mecca and of Hijaz, from a man whose name was Abu Qabus, a freed slave and a manumitted slave of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, who narrated from the Prophet ﷺ's companion, Abdullah ibn Amr al-As, may Allah be well pleased with them both, that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhumur Rahman. Ar-Rahman, Allah the most merciful, shows mercy to those who are merciful to each other. Show mercy to those who live on earth, and those, and this is something that we're going to have to just get a little technical in, the last part of the translation, we're going to have to get a little technical, because there's several different meanings and understandings, versions which are authentic and inauthentic with regards to this last part of the hadith. So just stay with me. Show mercy to those who are on earth. One version states, everybody stay with me, one version states, Yarhamkum man fis sama. He who is above the heavens will show mercy to you. Another version or another understanding of the words in Arabic, let alone in English, those who are in the heavens will show mercy to you. And there's a huge difference between this and between that. Once again, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ in this hadith is quoted to have said, those who are merciful to one another, those who are merciful to each other, the most merciful will show them mercy. Show mercy, once again he says, show mercy to those who are on earth, and the one who is above the heavens will show mercy to you. Or another understanding or interpretation or version, those who are in the heavens will show mercy to you. Khairan inshallah. So this is a translation. We didn't get into the meanings, the versions. This is just a translation. Khairan inshallah. Dr. Abu Zayd, hafidhullah ta'ala, I think he did a very good job, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sure knows best, but I feel he did a very good job in giving you the history of the hadith, its background, its importance, and its significance. Bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we want to piggyback off of what he gave. This hadith, why do these scholars begin their circles and sittings with? Why do they give this hadith as an ijazah from the beginning? Why? As because knowledge should be based upon, the intention of seeking, learning, and teaching knowledge should be for no other reason except for rahmah, mercy. Knowledge is not a means of torture. It should not be a means of threatening. It should not be a means of fear and frightening. Knowledge that you learn, that you teach, that you study, that you review and revise with one another should only be a means of rahmah. Rahmah in this world, and most importantly, as An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala said, that ilm al-hadith laysa min ulum al-dunya wa innama huwa min ulum al-akhirah. He said the sciences of hadith, they're not from the worldly things. They're only from the things that you truly appreciate and benefit in the afterlife. So if you're seeking the sciences of hadith and sciences of the sunnah for pomp and for glamour, for glitter and gold, then you're a loser. And you're going against all of those ulama who came before you. The true essence and nature of this thing here is only for the hereafter. And what could be a time or place in which more mercy is given and shown except for the hereafter? As the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, that one piece of mercy is sent down in the dunya, how many other parts remain for the hereafter? Everybody understand this? So the background of the hadith, its significance, its importance is crucial in understanding what is meant by the actual wording of the hadith. Why was the hadith passed on and narrated? For mercy. Sufyan ibn Uyayna, rahimahullah, he didn't need to show mercy to this little boy. As Dr. Abu Zayd mentioned, he was who he was, from the greatest of the ulama, if not the greatest of the ulama of his time. Yet still, he was affected by what the Prophet said, and he physically implemented it. And he gave him that hadith. He had rahmah. So therefore, the reason why these scholars begin with this hadith firstly, is to show us and to teach us that the foundation of knowledge, the original concept, the original philosophy of ilm in general, specifically ilm of the sunnah, is to be a mercy. And if the knowledge that we're learning and teaching and spreading, if it does not bring about mercy among the people, know for sure it is not true knowledge of the sunnah. It is not true knowledge of the sunnah. No matter how much I perfume it, its odor is bad. No matter what name or title I give it or what package I wrap it in, the box is empty. Knowledge is a means of rahmah. So if you cut on the television, or you listen to the radio, or on your smartphone, and you see this person says this, and they're doing this in this country, and it's causing a means of torture and oppression to the people, it is impossible to be from the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want to give you a brief story of one of my teachers who used to teach in the Islamic University of Medina. I won't mention his name for one reason or another. My first time I went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam city, I was 18. And they had that which we call an istiraha. Basically, it's like an evening lecture. They have some food. You can sit with the mashayikh. You sit, you talk with them, so on and so forth. You see the different students from the various countries, and you benefit and you have a good time. And this istiraha was outside of Medina. It was in a small city in the outskirts of Medina, and it was like basically on a farm. This was many, many years ago. So they asked the sheikh the question. This was right after 9/11, as Jeff interviewed me yesterday, and he said, "You went overseas after 9/11?" Said this. He said, Abu Muslima, Abu Osama, these people, they went overseas in the 80s and the 90s. You went right after 9/11. How did that change and affect you? Back to the story. It was right after 9/11. So they asked this sheikh, whose name I'll leave unmentioned. They said, "Yes, sheikh, was what happened in New York City, the quote-unquote terrorist attacks, whether it was Muslims or not, we're not going to get into that, conspiracy theories, this and that. What happened? Those people that were killed and died, was that jihad in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's cause? Was it jihad fi sabilillah?" This alim was very learned. He had a great deal of knowledge. But look at the wisdom of his answer. He said, ask the Muslims who live in America. He says, you ask them, go to them, ask them, that was jihad. Don't ask me. I live in Mecca, Medina, I don't know. You have to ask the Americans. Ask the Tulab from the United States. They'll tell you if it's jihad or not. Some of the Tulab, they were like, what do you mean, Sheikh? You're the teacher, we're the students. How do we know what is and what isn't jihad? He said, from the objectives of jihad is that it gives and it endows the Muslims with izzah, with honor, with might, with prestige, literally and figuratively. Jihad is the purpose is to raise the Muslims and to elevate them, to make them superior physically and metaphysically, if that's the correct way to say it in English. In other words, he said, what happened after 9/11? Were the Muslims in America, did they experience honor and might and glory, or were they shamed and humiliated and oppressed? To this day, only Allah knows what happens when we go to the airport. What 4S means. You miss your flight, they say, oh, I'm sorry. We have rules, we have instructions to search everything on you. It's not our problem if you miss the flight. Run, God told me. He said, you better go to the terminal. To this day. So the concept of this answer, he said that the reason why it isn't jihad is because the main goal and purpose of jihad was totally lost, and that was to honor the Muslims. 9/11, he said, this scholar, he said it humiliated the Muslims. It caused them hardships, difficulties, and woes, physically, spiritually, and mentally. So how can it be jihad? So the point that we're trying to get to from this hadith is that knowledge of the sunnah is rahmah. If it does not bring about rahmah, it isn't true knowledge of the sunnah. Everybody understand the point in relation here? No matter what you call it, say what you want to say, bring what you want to bring. If you're killing and fighting, if it does not lift and elevate the Muslims, it isn't jihad. If your teachings and your da'wah, if it does not give the Muslims rahmah, make them love each other and bring them closer, it is not beneficial knowledge. As we said before, no matter how much perfume you put on, if you don't wash, you don't clean yourself, you don't scrub yourself, you don't put on deodorant, natural or any other type of deodorant, it don't matter how much perfume you put on, how nafis, how much Burberry you put on, you're going to stink, you're going to smell. The Prophet ﷺ, he spoke of this concept of people calling khamr other than its name. It's not khamr, it has another name. So the concept of rahmah, sunnah, of knowledge is brown on rice. And this is why, as Abu Zayd, Hafidhullah Ta'ala mentioned, is the main hadith in which many Islamic centers start off with to give and to spread and teach their students. Everything that you do, my student, from the first year to the last year, from masters, from doctors, or informal studies or informal studies, when you go back to your people, has to be based off of rahmah, so don't forget it. So the hadith, it says, Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-Rahman, irhamu man fil ardi, yarhamkum man fis sama. As I said before, in brief, not to make things complicated, there are several versions of this hadith. Some of those versions are authentic and others aren't. Some of those versions are authentic and other versions are not authentic. This version tells us, Ar-Rahimun. Pay close attention. He doesn't mention Muslims. He doesn't say pious, knowledgeable, learned, noble. He says, Rahimun. Even non-Muslims who show mercy to each other, they shall receive mercy from who? From Allah, from Ar-Rabb, Al-Aziz, Al-Hakim, Ar-Rahman. So the question is, what does Ar-Rahman mean? And what is the difference between Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim? Does anybody know the difference between these two terms? We say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ahmed can deal.
Rahman is for all of creation. Allah's mercy upon all of creation. It's in generality. Whereas Rahim is exclusive to the Muslims.
Right. You feel the same way, Saad?
Ar-Rahim is perpetual forgiver. And like Ahmed said, Ar-Rahman is just general.
Right.
Ar-Rahman is more present. Ar-Rahim is later on as well.
Right. Anybody else? I didn't say anything was right or wrong. Follow Jamil.
Ar-Rahman is, like, let's say in general, mercy. And I think Rahim is more the person who does the mercy.
Right. Anybody else? Before we go on? We say, in brief, there's several views and opinions of the scholars with regards to the differences between these two names. Some say Ar-Rahman fi dunya, Ar-Rahim fil akhirah. Ar-Rahman in this life and Ar-Rahim in the hereafter. As we mentioned, that there's going to be more mercy in the what? In the hereafter. And vice versa, Atif Shaykh, he says there's going to be more punishment in the hereafter. Those who are punished now will be even worse in the hereafter. As Imam Ahmad rahimahullah is narrated that he passed by a woman one day, a very old woman, an old hag, and she was a mushrika. She wasn't a believer. She was sick, she was old, she was tired. She was, cringed, humped. And Imam Ahmad started to cry. And he said, why are you crying, Ya Abu Abdullah? He said, look at this poor woman. She's upon kufr and shirk. And if she dies in the hereafter, what else is there for her? Hardship in this life. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So therefore, some of the ulama say this is the difference between these two names. Others say Ar-Rahman sifatu dhatin, Ar-Rahim sifatu fi'lin. That Ar-Rahman is originally the most merciful all of the time. And there was never a time in which Allah wasn't merciful. And Ar-Rahim is a means of mercy that He gives and He shows when He wills to whom He wills. And in brief, Allah has specific attributes that He all of the time. And there are other attributes that come when a reason is brought forth. Everybody understand this? A third opinion, Ar-Rahman is for all of mankind, all of creation, and Ar-Rahim is just for the believers. And that's not a strong opinion. Because Allah says in the Quran Kareem, Inna Allah bin Nasi. Allah says that Allah is compassionate and Rahim to all of man. So these are three of the main views with regards to the differences between Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Al-Muhim, this is a profound statement. If you show mercy to each other, if you're kind to each other, if you help out the weak and the poor and the oppressed, the same thing will happen to you from the one who possesses everything. The one who will take the earth on the day of judgment and place it on one of his fingers like it's nothing. So if you want Allah's mercy, then why are you so harsh and mean? Why are you so cruel? Why are you so disrespectful and rude to your spouse, to your wife? How can a man beat his wife? and hit his wife and strike his wife and throw down his wife and read this hadith? How can a woman abuse her children? Or maybe she may hit her husband and you read this hadith. You expect Allah's rahmah, but you don't want to show it and give it to anyone else. Something's wrong. Something's seriously wrong with your iman, with your knowledge, with your faith. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-Rahman. And pay close attention to the style. The hadith doesn't say, Ar-Rahman, inna ar-Rahmana yarham ar-Rahimin. It starts off with Ar-Rahimun. And we know the style of taqdeem, ma haqquhu ta'khir. Putting something first that belongs, quote unquote, last. In other words, is showing you that it's a specific type of mercy that you're going to get. In brief, we don't want to spend too much time on that. Moving on. Irhamu man fil ardi. After the Prophet ﷺ encouraged you and incited you to be merciful with each other, he then commanded you a second time to place emphasis. In other words, brothers and sisters, don't just don't fall in love with the hadith and that's it. Don't just be seduced by what the hadith says. Oh, that's lovely. Ar-Rahman will show mercy to those who are merciful, as many Muslims do today. Don't just fall in love with the romance of the hadith. Now there's an order, a command. Irhamu, be merciful, show mercy. Because a person can clearly believe in it and understand it, and it may make him cry. Wow, Ar-Rahman is merciful to everyone. But he may not be merciful to those. So now we have Aqidah and we have Amal, belief and action. The hadith then says, Irhamu man fil ard. Show rahmah to those who are in the earth. Once again, it is inexplicit. It doesn't say show rahmah to the Muslims, to the believers, to the people of your madhab or your group, of your culture, of your background. Only show mercy to the black people, to the indigenous Muslims. Only show mercy to Muslims who come from India or Bangladesh or Pakistan. That's it. Only show mercy to white Muslims. Only show mercy to men. Only show mercy to women. Only show mercy. No. Irhamu man fil ard. Anyone, rather, anything that is on the earth, crawling, as Allah says in the Quran, فَمِنْهُ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى بَطْنِهِ وَمِنْهُ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى رِجْلَيْنِ وَمِنْهُ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى أَرْبَعٍ. Allah says, from Allah's creatures are those who walk upon their bellies, and those who walk upon two, and those who walk upon four. Insects, animals, birds, bees, anything that is on the earth, be merciful to it. And what's meant by rahmah is what is explained in the kitab and in the sunnah. So when you establish the punishment upon someone, the criminal law for stealing, for adultery, for murder, manslaughter, and any other offense and crime that Allah and His Messenger has declared, they have declared to be a crime, an offense that is punishable by law, that is also considered to be what? Rahmah. That's mercy. As many of the tabi'in said, لا إقامة حد واحد من حدود الله. He says establishing one of the criminal punishments of Allah is better than rain for 40 days. It's better for rain than 40 days. In other words, when you implement Allah's rulings and His legislation, that is mercy to the people, more mercy than rain. Allah says rahmah in the Quran as rain. So that's what's meant by rahmah. Being merciful is not you being soft and weak when it comes to Allah's deen. That's not rahmah. Knowing your brother is doing something wrong, your sister is doing something wrong, and you don't say nothing to them, that's not rahmah. Being merciful to your child is not letting your child do anything that the child wants to do. That's not rahmah. What's rahmah is what Allah and His Messenger have legislated to the Muslim and to the Kafir. As it states in a hadith, وَفِي كُلِّ كَبِدٍ رَبْطٍ أَجْرٍ. The Messenger of Allah said, and every living being is a reward. Giving a non-Muslim food and giving a Muslim food. Let alone da'wah, let alone your family members, etc. The hadith then says, and we're rushing because I know we're running out of time, يَرْحَمْكُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ. This hadith here, this part of the hadith, I'm going to say, needs some more detail, more discussion. And it's relatively problematic. It's relatively problematic. The narration that Dr. Abu Zayd, Hafidhullah, brought us says, Men fis sama. And this word men in the Arabic language, as we all know, can mean several things. It can mean one, and it can mean a group. It can mean one, two, or three. Everybody clear on this? Secondly, the word fi has several meanings. It could mean within, It can mean above. And that's a long discussion in the Arabic language. And then the word says as-sama, in heaven, or a literal translation will be the sky. So to keep things brief and simple, there's some narrations that state Yarhamkum ahlus sama, the people of the heavens will show mercy to you. And what's meant by the people of the heavens are the angels. The angels, the malaika. And some of the scholars and students of hadith, they find this narration to be totally inauthentic. And they say that it's munkar. It's a disapproved meaning. How can the angels show mercy to people? Another ulama, they say this means that they pray for the believers. They supplicate for them, as Allah stated in the Quran, Surah Al-Ghafir. Another understanding or version of this hadith is man fi sama, yani man fawqa samawat. Show mercy to those who are on earth, and Ar-Rahman, who is above the throne, above all of his creation, he will show mercy to you. Everybody understand this? Another understanding, hopefully we'll have time to mention, is even this narration, man fi sama, yani al-malaika, the angels. And we all know that every single Muslim is to believe that Allah, the Mighty and the Majestic, is the Most High. وَهُوَ الْعَلِي الْأَعْلَى. In every sense and every meaning of the word, loftiness. Allah is the most lofty. That's a long, long discussion. Our sitting is not a sitting of Iman and Tawheed, but these are things that are related and connected to what? The sciences of Hadith. So before we close, I just want to mention another version of this Hadith that Imam At-Tirmidhi rahimahullah has collected in his Jami'. وَالرَّحِمُ شِجْنَةٌ بِكَسْرِ الْمُعْجَمَةِ وَسُكُونِ الْجِيمِ بَعْدَهَا نُونٌ وَجَاء بضم أوله وفتحه رواية ولغة وأصل الشجنة أو الشجنة عروق الشجر المشتبكة والشجن بالتحريك واحد الشجون وهي طرق الأودية ومن قولهم الحديث ذو سجون أي يدخل بعضه في بعض من الرحمن أي أخذ اسمها من هذا الاسم كما في حديث عبد الرحمن بن عوف في السنن مرفوعا إلى آخر كلامه رحمه الله تعالى. Al-Mubarak Fori rahimahullah, from the great hadith masters of India of the 20th century, he comments on this hadith and the version of Imam At-Tirmidhi that adds, and rahim, the wombs, literal translation, the bellies of women, meaning family ties. Family ties, he says, shijna or shajna are considered to be roots. Man wasalaha wasalahu Allah. وَمَنْ قَطْعَهَا قَطْعَهُ اللَّهُ أَوْ كَمَا قَالَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. Those who keep these ties, Allah will keep him on the straight way. And those who break and sever these ties, Allah will break them. وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ. So this hadith is paramount, it's profound. Indeed, half an hour, 20 minutes is not enough time for Dr. Abu Zaid to sit down, to dissect, and to literally slice it up and break it down piece by piece, word by word, and give you every single benefit. There isn't enough time. We say from the most outward benefits of this hadith, first and foremost, is the virtue of rahmah. The first lesson we take from this hadith is the virtue of mercy. We didn't say anything about showing mercy. We said the virtue of mercy. Number two is the virtue of showing mercy. And we know that there are attributes of Allah that we are, as His slaves, are to emulate and imitate. And there are certain attributes of Allah that we are not, such as pride. That is not for the slave. But mercy, forgiveness, pardoning is something that Allah says about Himself, and we are to take an example from that. The third benefit we take from this hadith is the affirmation of one of the names of Allah, Ar-Rahman. Number 4 is the affirmation of one of His actions, which is Rahmah. And it's very unfortunate and sad that so many Muslims read and study this hadith and they do not truly believe in Allah's rahmah. And they figuratively interpret it. And they say it really doesn't mean rahmah, but it means Allah intends to do good. And it's so unfortunate. The next benefit we take from this hadith is the obligation of showing rahmah, that it's mandatory. The next benefit we take from this hadith is a refutation and a rebuttal of those who say and speak about Islam as a religion of terror. And I don't even like using that word, to be honest with you. I don't even like using that word terror and terrorism. I don't like the word at all, for it or against it. But the concept that Islam is a deen of terror, of killing, of murdering, of raping, of cutting someone's head off, and things like this. Ya akhi, for argument's sake, if it's permissible, And if it's legislated to kill a non-Muslim, whether he is a spy or an infidel or a traitor or an apostate or an enemy, whoever it is, would the Prophet ﷺ condone you cutting off a man's head with a pear knife, with a 3-inch knife? For argument's sake, when it is permissible to kill someone, would the Prophet condone that? To take someone's head off and to sever it off, sawing it off? That doesn't make any sense. Allah tells us in the Quran, فَضْرِبُوا. Allah says, strike their necks. He doesn't say, cut off their necks painfully. In other words, when you kill, Muslim or non-Muslim, capital punishment or whatever, it is supposed to be a swift, smooth, painless cut. So if you see someone or hear someone taking off a non-Muslim's head and he severs it off like he's sawing off his head, where are you from Islam, ya akhi? And everybody understand the point that we said? For argument's sake. For argument's sake. When it is permissible. Not saying that's permissible to do. Everybody understand this? The Messenger of Allah ﷺ says, وَإِذَا قَتَلْتُمْ فَأَحْسِنُوا الْقِتْلَةِ. He says, and when you kill, slaughtering an animal or killing someone, do it in the most proficient manner. And there isn't a death which is more painful, which is less painful, which is quicker than khalas. It's so fast the body doesn't even realize that it's dead. That's why it's continuing to move. So how can somebody say that this is jihad, this is Islam, this is the sunnah, this is the sharia, and he takes somebody's head and he doesn't even make sense? Where has this person not read this hadith? Even when you kill someone, and we said legislative, killing is what? Is what? What is it based off of? Rahmah. Put the person out of the misery. That's it. There's no torture in Islam. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ, every time he gave a khutbah, he forbade the companions from mutilating. Do not mutilate a person, even if they're non-Muslim. So that doesn't even make any sense. The next benefit we take from this hadith is the affirmation, according to one version, of the angels. And another version is the affirmation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being above all of his creatures. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Indeed, what Dr. Abu Zayd, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him and his family, mentioned is more than sufficient. Is a huge and immense benefit for us all. Now, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will proceed with the next step and the next phase of the presentation. I'm sorry for taking too long and for speaking too long. It wasn't my intention. Let Dr. Abu Zayd please continue his beneficial speech. Wallahu ta'ala.
How much time? We're out of time.
How much time do you?
No, I just.
You said go.
So, Bismillah ar-Rahim. Jazakumullah khair, Shaykh Mufti. So we're just going to do the final session, final portion of the proceeding. So we need to say a word about what ijaza is. So this was advertised as an ijaza in a hadith. So ijaza is something, just a virtue. I'll say one thing about the virtue. There's one of the scholars said, "Kafa bil mar'i sharafan an yakuna adna silsilatin a'laha Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Sufficient of an honor for a slave to be the bottom of a list of names whose top is a messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So ijaza is a process of linking yourself with the isnad. So the isnad, as we saw in the slides, was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companion from the Tabi'i all the way down to Abdurrahman ibn Bishr ibn al-Hakam, and continuing to our times. And so when you receive an isnad in a hadith, the person you're receiving the isnad from, he learned that hadith from his teacher, going back in an unbroken chain back to the Prophet ﷺ. What is the purpose of that today? It's merely an honor. It's a barakah. Nothing more, nothing less. There are some people that really emphasize ijaza, and they're always using it to beat other people over the head or overemphasize, exaggerating in that respect. Ijaza or isnad was important in the time of Bukhari and the time of Tadween. But after the books have been written down, now it doesn't serve a purpose for authentication. It's just an honor. So this ijaza that we get in the Hadith al-Rahmah, for instance, is an honorary certificate. You can consider it like an honorary degree. There are many scholars from the kibar of our scholars, the senior scholars of this century. They don't emphasize ijaza. They consider it meaningless. It's just an honor, and some of them don't even engage in that. One of my great teachers, I won't mention his name, but he had ijazah in all the books of hadith from a senior teacher. But at a very early age, he ripped up his ijazahs because he felt for what was more important for him was comprehension, something called diraya versus riwayah. So you have a range of approaches to this idea of ijazah. So we will proceed and grant all of you, inshallah, ijazah in the hadith of rahmah as an honorary certificate. You shouldn't take that home now, consider yourself a muhaddith and go around and act like I have ijazah in hadith. Now, as many people, unfortunately, there are people that act like that. Even some people are supposed to be people of knowledge. And that's a fitna, Allah is a fitna. At the end of the day, what's important is what you do with the knowledge that you have been given, whether you have those credentials or not. There are plenty of scholars that haven't graduated with degrees from university, but they're more knowledgeable than people with PhDs and some of the advanced degrees. So this ijazah, the way it's given is very simple. All you have to do is hear the hadith from the teacher. The way Sufyan ibn Uyayna, all he did was narrate the hadith to Abdurrahman, and he received that hadith. And later on, you could say, I received this hadith from Sufyan ibn Uyayna with this list of names. So ijazah is very simple. There are many ways of getting ijazah. The student reading to the teacher reading to the student. This particular hadith, generally the shaykh or the student or the teacher reads the hadith with this isnad to the students. So we'll end by doing that. And Sheikh Mufti also should, he's supposed to participate in the ijazah. He didn't bring his certificate, but if you can oblige them with a verbal ijazah, that can be a barakah for everyone, inshallah. Inshallah. So we will, what we'll do is I'll read my isnad, and all the way to the beginning of the hadith through the PowerPoint. And then we have these certificates that have the isnad, and there's a blank here where we have to fill your name. So maybe after I'm done reading that, you can pass this certificate around. All of you need to write your name in Arabic. If you need help, just bring it forward. We'll help you write the name if you don't know how to write the Arabic. So the ijazah, the isnad is a list of Arabic names, and your name should appear in Arabic. That's generally how isnad and ijazah appears. So this hadith, Bismillah. So this is what the text of, or the certificate looks like, and you'll get that shortly in a few moments, inshallah. So we begin with this hadith, inshallah. أروي هذا الحديث بإسنادي المتصل إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أخبرني عبد الرحمن بن حافظ بن الحي الكتاني حفظه الله تعالى قال أخبرنا الحافظ محمد بن الحي الكتاني قال أخبرني أبو البركات صافي الجفري المكي قال أخبرني عابد السندي الأنصاري قال أخبرني صالح الفلاني قال أخبرني محمد بن سنة العمري قال أخبرني الشريف محمد بن عبد الله الولاتي قال حدثنا محمد بن أرقماش الحنفي قال حدثنا به الحافظ ابن حجر الأسقلاني. This is the famous Hafid ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. So I'm reading a list of names from my teacher to his teacher, going back to the story that we mentioned. And from some